Hey, Foot Clan, week number 3 is in the books, and I hope your team's doing well. If you want to upgrade your weekend like we do, you need to get in on Draft. Draft is our absolute favorite DFS app that we use every single week. We compete against each other, and we compete against the Foot Clan. We have 2 awesome tournaments every single week. We got a free one and a $10 entry, and I really encourage you to jump in the $10 entry. It makes the weekend so fun. It is a snake draft. This is not normal salary cap DFS. Draft is a snake draft, which means you actually, when you get a player, your opponent doesn't get that player, which means the strategy and the fun that we had in the offseason drafting players continues through the entire season. We absolutely love it, and you can go to playdraft.com/ballers, or you can just go to the iOS store or Android store, search for Draft, download the Draft app, and when you sign up, put in the promo code BALLERS, and you will get, Ballers. And you will get automatically entered into leagues with us. And so it is super fun. It is a free app. You can grab it. We encourage you to deposit and play every single week, and go get that app right now.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the FantasyJocks.com studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Are either of you guys running backs for the Atlanta Falcons? Woo!
That was quite the show.
That'd be the good life.
Welcome in, everybody. It is Tuesday. It is September 27th, 2016. We are the Fantasy Footballers, and we're back again for yet another show. And there is an electricity in the air because the waiver wire show is here, and this is like make or break time for your season. It's getting to week 4. A couple signings here, some FAAB money spent right now can go a long way, and we want to give you some names, guys that you might be able to get at a bargain price, that you might be able to just sneak off the waiver wire. And
the guy's worth spending your waiver priority if you're in that system and saying, like, is it worth spending this?
Yeah.
Some of these, the answer is yes.
So props to Mike. His starts of the week, now he cheated. And he cheated, and I don't care.
I don't think he cheated. I think he made it harder on himself.
That's how I felt.
I mean,
That's true. That's true. He picked 2 guys for the running back starts of the week, and their names were Devonta Freeman and Tevin Coleman.
Wow.
And in our league of record scoring, which half-point league, and they're giving high fives to each other, just like Tevin Coleman and Devonta Freeman did last night.
In the middle of the field when they're like, there's nobody around.
Right, yeah, they did that on one play. Remember that? When
that
they
was a great play.
And they lateraled to each other all the way down the field, skipping and laughing. We in our league of record, they both scored 30 points. And actually, the garbage time 44-yard run for Devonta Freeman won a game for one of our league mates, which was pretty incredible. And I'm sure if you were on the other end of the Coleman or Freeman Express, or God forbid both of them, you lost. You lost. So
a funny aside while we're talking about that of the league. So we all know that Julio Jones crapped his pants, had 1 catch for 16 yards.
You got to tell this story.
That 1 catch cost me a victory.
You went into the game.
I was down by 0.2 points. My team, I had a really bad week, and so it was okay. Well, this is an auto loss. At the end of the first quarter, I start texting the guys. I'm like, Julio doesn't have a catch yet. Like, is this possible? We get to halftime. Julio does not have a catch, and I'm fully invested. I'm riding this snake of, is this even fathomable? Is this possible that Julio Jones could get shut out and I end up winning by 0.2?
If that had happened, your opponent also had Kelvin Benjamin, who was completely shut out. So you would have had you would have gone up against
both had
Kelvin
really bad weeks.
and Julio, and they would have scored nothing against you. And they almost did. I mean, but you lost.
But the fact is, if he got zeros from those guys, that's actually more than Ryan Matthews scored for me.
All right, we're gonna jump. We're gonna jump into the news. Real quick reflections on the Monday night game. Kobe Fleener woke up.
Reverse Samson.
Yeah, reverse Samson. Mike can't let that go. Cut his hair and got 7 for 109 and a touchdown. We all said, look, you add it to the list, right? Emmanuel Sanders, Aaron Rodgers, Allen Robinson, Todd Gurley. Now Kobe Fleener.
Mark Ingram.
The get right game for a number of players where it was the make or break of, is this a trend that is going to mean that I drafted this guy in the wrong spot or not? And now Fleener, to me, he looked fine. I mean, he obviously played well. This is a game where Breeze had 376 yards and 3 touchdowns, and Matt Ryan looked good again, played well. Really, the running backs, make Matt Ryan look great. When you can dump it to 2 pass-catching running backs out of the backfield, incredible. And then you had Julio and Brandon Cooks.
What?
who both let you down, and you just
Wow.
look at the box score and you're going, huh?
Wait, there was like almost 800 passing yards, and Julio Jones and Brandon Cooks combined for what, like 30?
29 yards.
That's-
Yeah.
Sorry.
3 catches of 29 yards combined.
Wow.
Yeah, that is not good. So before we move on to the news and notes, there are a number of injuries we need to report before, and then we're going to get into the waivers right in because that's the meat of this show. Before we do that, I do want to thank the Foot Clan, everybody over at jointhefoot.com for being part of our community. We're going to have those flex rankings and the premium projections up for you this week, along with a live stream tomorrow afternoon. So if you're part of the Foot Clan,
tomorrow?
yeah, we've got a live stream tomorrow at 4 o'clock PST. You can get in on that. And then we've got a cool Keep, Trade, Cut, and Mailbag show tomorrow as well. So do not miss out on that. Check us out on Twitter at the FF Ballers and on the web at thefantasyfootballers.com. We also have our streams today, our streaming quarterback picks for the week. And so we're going to get into that as well. Let's move on to the news.
News and notes from around the league.
All right, I'm going to start with some big injuries. Shane Vereen, out of nowhere, tricep injury, likely to miss the rest of the season. What in the world do we do with the New York Giants backfield?
Oof. I think right now you have a little bit of a hold in the sense that you've got Rashad Jennings. You're not sure if he's going to be back. You've got Arlene's Darkwa, who I think a lot of people are going to be putting FAAB on. We'll talk about him in the waivers. But you've got a bad matchup this week.
You left Paul Perkins out.
Yes, Paul Perkins.
Paul Perkins hasn't done anything yet.
Well, it was
Bobby-
just said that he was ready to step up, and he's going to get carries. He's been involved in special teams. We liked him as a rookie coming into the year.
Yes.
But the point is, it's a little bit of a mess right now. It's a little murky. And this current week, it's important to know, they're playing the Vikings. And that defense is they've been all right.
They're probably the best in the league.
And so it's like, oh, do you rush out and spin on Arlene's Darkwa?
Right.
Jennings will have, if let's say this week is just bad for all Giants running backs. Well, that's 2 weeks that Rashad Jennings has to get back. And then when he gets back, he's got no Shane Vereen.
How many people that were Danny Woodhead owners went out and bought Shane Vereen and now have to deal with this?
Sorry, everybody.
Pete Carroll said Thomas Rawls will miss multiple weeks with a fibula injury that was worse than expected.
This
in
is
case you missed it.
In case you missed it, because this popped up at the very back of yesterday's show while I was circling the victory laps with Kristen Michael.
You were
hand in
actually
hand.
circling the laps. That's a bigger circle.
Yeah, he
get-
goes outside.
He goes outside
the
of the
laps.
actual victory laps.
It's really,
Yes.
really
That's
cool.
very Jason of you. So look, Kristen Michael going to be starting.
Yep.
For a while.
Yeah.
And so will you. If you own Kristen Michael, you shall be starting him.
With Kristen Michael, the way things have broken down, and this is one of the reasons I believe in Rawls when he comes back, and I said it on the show yesterday, Rawls is just more consistent to me. Michael has the ability to give you these big, big plays, but I feel like Rawls is that every down chunker, and Michael is still in that role where he is looking for that big, big play. And so if you get it, mixed in with the rest of what he's doing, how can you argue with the starter in Seattle right now? You can't. All right, Ian Rappaport reporting Jeremy Langford, diagnosed with a sprained ankle, expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks. We're hearing high ankle sprain. Jordan Howard alert.
Yeah, and Jeremy Langford was already showing signs of last year's inefficiency. We've already had a fumble. Wow, Jordan Howard has looked very capable. He got involved in the passing game last week in week 3. So Jordan Howard, we will be talking about him for sure on the waiver part.
All right, yes, absolutely. Antonio Gates, hamstring, wasn't close to suiting up against the Colts, likely to miss another game. Is Hunter Henry somebody that you'd pay attention to? Not really.
He's in the Barfy tight ends.
All right, will Jamaal Charles play this week? What do you guys think?
I think he's
So
going
it's
to
a
get
yes vote from Jason?
It's a yes vote from me. I think he's going to get on the field this week. I don't think he's startable for fantasy.
All right,
but it wouldn't blow me away if he comes out and gets 8 or 9 carries and takes one of them. Says I'm back.
I'm
but
gonna
I'm not
go
starting.
with a no. I don't
Really?
think he plays this week. Andy Reid came out and said there's a chance he returns. I think that is called there's a chance you need to prepare for him opponent, and I don't think he's on the field this week.
Mike, tiebreaker. What say you?
I'm going to go with yes.
Okay, so now we know Jamaal Charles is starting.
Sure we do. Yeah, what was that, Willie
That was-
Snead?
that
What was
was-
that, Willie Snead?
That was very scientific of us.
All right, ESPN Packers reporter Rob Demavosky I didn't pronounce that right. Rob Demovsky?
Yeah, there you go.
I don't get those right. Reports Jared Cook's ankle is not season-ending.
That's good news for the Packers and Jared Cook.
That's about it.
It was being reported when it first happened that he broke his ankle and that he'd be out.
Zach Ertz expected to play after the bye week this week. You got to remember, byes are here.
Yes.
The Packers are on bye. The Eagles are on bye. Who else is on bye this week? You're gonna have to take a quick look at that.
Yeah, I'll have to look.
That way we let people know.
Sure.
ASJ claimed off waivers by the Jets.
Yeah, they did not have a tight end. They haven't used the tight end for a while, so it'll be interesting to see how they involve him. Obviously, it's another.
He's going to be subject to
probable suspension.
Yeah, suspension, right?
Well, it's DUI, so it'll take some time. This week is only Green Bay and Philadelphia. Next week is a larger one.
There you go.
With the Jaguars, the Chiefs, the Saints, and the Seahawks.
Michael Floyd in the concussion protocol.
Hey, John Brown, now is your time, my friend. If Michael Floyd, the situation has completely flip-flopped here. John Brown had the concussion early. If for some reason Michael Floyd is trending in the wrong direction, John Brown, a lot of people have bailed on him. He's going to be a must-add.
57% of snaps this week for John Brown. He had 6 catches. He looked like he was getting back into form, ironically from a concussion, so he's going to have the opportunity here. Pay attention to him. He's another guy we're talking about in waivers. And Dez Bryant will undergo an MRI today. Looks like, Jerry Jones thinks he'll play, but we're going to wait and see with Dez Bryant. Does this injury concern change your rest of season outlook for Dez Bryant?
It doesn't. No, it doesn't change it for me. It's just one of those. Well, here we go again. We dealt with injury all last year with him. Hopefully we can get some good Dez moving forward.
All right, it's waiver time.
Put me in, Coach.
I said this on the radio this morning. This is the time of year where 1 or 2 small moves for your team can be the difference between winning the next 3 or 4 weeks and losing them. It is a couple of moves. You don't have to necessarily spend all day long overhauling your team with 1,000 trades, but a couple of small moves will make a big difference in these upcoming weeks. And so I'm excited to talk about these guys. I think there are some must-adds, and I'd like to know what you guys think, Jason, Mike, about must-adds in each position. And then there are some maybe-adds depending on your league size, depending on your circumstances with injuries, and things like that. So let's start with the aforementioned John Brown. Now, John Brown is owned in about 75% of leagues, but does he have the potential, with or without the Floyd injury, to be a wide receiver 2, Jason?
Without a doubt. This was a really good week for my guys, right? I'm a late bloomer. And so my Kobe Fleener and John Brown, they came a little bit to life. But you mentioned he only had 57% of snaps. But he had a good fantasy game, and he was productive without that. Those snaps are going to continue to go up. Jerron Brown, look, I really like him, but he's not John Brown, and he's not going to be cutting into his snaps all season long, in my opinion. I don't see that happening. I think John Brown gets back up to that 90% snap count, especially right now with Michael Floyd out. He missed the whole, almost the entire preseason. And it takes a little time to, get in sync with Carson Palmer and those things. We've seen it with plenty of other teams. And so now he's coming on. I feel like John Brown is one of those must-owns. If he's on your waiver, so many people dropped him, and it was understandable. He wasn't doing anything. He wasn't getting the snaps he needed, and people had injuries. He's on a lot of waivers, and you need to pick him up, and I would start him this coming week personally.
Mike, who's your must-add wide receiver this week?
Ooh, I don't know if I have anyone who is I would call an absolute 100. I'm going to slam my fist on the desk, must add, but the closest to that would be our guy Terrelle Pryor.
Our guy?
Yeah, he is now.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Well, I drafted him and then I kind of let him go, and now I'm very sad about it. So I just have the Wolverine gif where he's sitting on the bed and looking at the picture frame. And they put into
that's what you have.
That's me and Terrelle Pryor.
Pryor's
right now.
in the picture frame.
Yeah, and I'm saying I miss you, TP. Come back to me.
It's kind of a trick question because if you pick Pryor, he might be the must-add wide receiver, running back, and quarterback.
Very, very fair.
I agree with you. He's 27% owned.
That's why he's the must-add, because
I'd play him this week
for the foreseeable future. While it's Cody Kessler, the Browns are just going to piece it together, and that means Terrelle Pryor is going to be involved. in all parts of the offense. We saw him go 8 for 144. He had 144 receiving yards with Cody Kessler as the quarterback, 14 targets. And I think that Pryor can be great even moving forward. Let's say we know that Josh Gordon is going to be back next week. Corey Coleman's still gone. It's going to be Terrelle Pryor and Josh Gordon. Josh McCown comes back. Well, now you've upgraded the quarterback to a guy who throws it deep, and then we know that Terrelle Pryor is great at that. So I think as of right now, the only guy who I love off of the waiver wire, there's a couple guys that I really like, but the one that I love is Terrelle Pryor right now.
Yeah, I completely agree that you should add him. I think I disagree on his season-long outlook. I think when Josh Gordon comes back, right now Terrelle Pryor he's it. I mean, it's him and Gary Barnidge and Isaiah Crowell. Like, I mean, he is the guy. But when Josh Gordon gets back, I don't think the offense is going to produce enough to have multiple high-value assets. So if he goes off again this week, I said it last episode, I would trade him. You guys are more buying in for the season long. But regardless, he needs to be picked up. The guy for me, other than John Brown and Terrelle Pryor, that I want if I am looking for a wide receiver is Jamison Crowder. Jamison Crowder has been quietly amazing. He is he's either tied for first or he's second so far on the year in red zone targets at the goal line or inside the 10. He's getting valuable targets. And this last week, I mean, he was 4 for 78 with a touchdown. He's on, one of those offenses that is going to throw the ball a ton. And I think he's a talented second-year wide receiver. Jamison Crowder is available in all of your leagues. I mean, I think he's something like
11% owned.
Yeah, so he's out there, he's available, and I think he's startable, and his upside is there. If Josh Doxson comes on, I think maybe it could eat in a little bit, but I think he's worth grabbing on the cheap.
One of the guys I was really high on this week, paid off for you, 7 for 71 and a touchdown. Michael Thomas last night really looks like a good young wide receiver. He's long. He's willing to go into traffic. He's a guy that I think is going to outperform Willie Snead from week to week here and there this season because Breeze is going to go with the guy that's open. And I don't think, Willie Snead, as great as he started the year, I don't think he's some transcendent talent. And I think Michael Thomas, they invested a pick in him, and I think he's going to be involved. Now, he's 56% owned. Do you guys buy in? Would you spin FAAB on Thomas, or do you think this is kind of like the wrong time to do it with Snead coming back and Fleener getting involved?
I would absolutely spend on Michael Thomas because we've seen even in the prior games that he's been valuable. This wasn't his first touchdown, and should Snead or Cooks or any other weapon go down, the volume is going to be there. Since 2012, okay, listen to this. Since 2012, the New Orleans Saints, they have the most yards in the NFL. They have also given up the most yards in the NFL. That's what you want for fantasy football. Every game. Just take a guess. Next week, Vegas over-under lines. Guess which team has the highest one again?
New Orleans.
Yeah, and it's going to happen every single week. So Michael Thomas.
Yeah, I was wrong on that under prediction, by the way.
So
just a bit outside.
Michael Thomas is. I think there are several wide receivers that are great this week. Another one that is also worthy. I mean, I feel like this is the first week where, man, there's a handful of guys I actually want personally on my team. Another one is Steve Smith.
Absolutely. Love Steve Smith. Each week he has improved. Each week getting back into the equation.
8 for 87 this last week. And look, I mean, he's a Hall of Famer. He was fantastic, on fire last year, a top 12 wide receiver before he went down to injury. And the question was, can he come back?
He was a wide receiver 3 for Mike and I this past week. And for good reason. He's the go-to type of guy. Mike Wallace, for all of his attributes thus far, it's called scoring touchdowns. He's got 3 or 4 receptions. That's the most he's had. Steve Smith had 8.
Right.
He's going to be the go-to guy. I'm on board with you, Jay.
And this week, he's at home, where Joe Flacco is much better at home, and he's against the Oakland Raiders.
Yeah,
so
he's a good play this week.
All right, let's throw out a couple more names.
The last name I wanted to throw out was Kevin White. We saw the backup quarterback and the number 2 wide receiver. It has struck again, where Kevin White got 14 targets, and he was getting showered with deep balls as well.
Well, you got to know, I mean, Alshon Jeffrey is not 100%. That makes a big difference.
Yeah,
sure, it does. But it seems like this always happens to me when I'm paying attention. When the backup is in, they just seem to have more of a connection with the backup type guys. And so for Kevin White, 6 for 62, but the 14 targets was huge, and now he gets to play Detroit. So I think Kevin White is he should be added.
All right, give me your must-add running back for the waiver wire. And no, you may not select Kristen Michael.
Oh,
Well, he's definitely it if he's out there.
Yes.
Just saying. Public
There are
service announcement.
25% of leagues in which Kristen Michael is sitting there, and you're getting a running back 1 for the time being if you go do that. So, yes, Kristen Michael is the headliner that we're not going to include in this must-add situation. But let's talk about the other guys, the 15, 20, 30% owned players. Who's your must-add guy?
well, it's Jordan Howard. I mean, Jeremy Langford went down. We talked about him earlier in the news, and Jordan Howard has looked very capable. 9 for 45 on the ground and 4 for 47. That's fantastic. Receiving yards, if you can get me 40 to 50 receiving yards, no matter what you do on the ground, you're going to have a fine day because you're going to end up around 80 to 100 yards, and that's what you want out of a running back, a guy who's going to be available on your waiver. I'd be pretty aggressive with my if I have the number 1 priority, I'll blow it on Jordan Howard. If I'm going to put some good FAAB in on Howard, I want him on my team. 4 to 6 weeks of Langford, and that's just the injury. That's not saying, hey, Langford, when you get back, you get your starting job. We have classic John Fox here who's saying, well, Jay Cutler might not get his job back. This is who we're dealing with as a head coach in Chicago. And Jordan Howard has been the superior running back, so that's who I'm picking up because he could turn into a lower end running back too for the rest of the season.
Especially while Jaquiz Rogers is injured. I'm sorry,
he's gone.
Not Jaquiz Rogers. Kadeem Carey.
Yes.
While Kadeem Carey is still injured as well, I think that Howard is very good. And what you bring up in the passing game is spot on. He was great at it in college, so you already knew that coming in. And it's kind of like Mark Ingram last year, where maybe he only gets 50 yards on the ground because the Bears don't have that great offensive line, but maybe he gets 50 yards through the air, and you have a
great game.
Yeah, exactly.
Before we move on, I do want to thank our sponsors of today's show that help keep this show going. Pristine Auction. They are the absolute best in the business. We love Pristine Auction. There is a Bumblebee Antonio Brown jersey that Jason is sitting directly next to, cuddling up with. Look, these guys have the absolute best sports memorabilia. We have had literally countless tweets from people who found bargains on Pristine Auction for their favorite team and their favorite team's gear. We have a David Johnson signed helmet sitting on the desk right here, and it is so affordable you would be surprised. They are absolutely the best. They care about their customers, and everything on there is 100% authentic. And they take great pains to make sure everything is authentic, and they only work with the best dealers. And so you won't find anybody like them. Make sure that when you go to pristineauction.com, that's PRISTINE, auction.com, that you let them know the fantasy footballers sent them. And every single day, there's something
I'm
cool
on
to
it right
check.
now.
There's something cool to check out because they have 24-hour auctions.
What you got on there, Mike?
What do you got? What's the top item that you're looking at right now?
The number 1 item for me, speaking of Antonio Brown, there is a full-sized yellow Antonio Brown signed helmet.
So you guys have no chance at that out there. Obviously, Mike's going to scoop it up. So
I want that old Babe Rube.
Babe Rube?
Wow.
They have Babe Rube balls on there for
those
50
are a
cents.
lot cheaper than the
and then
Babe
the Babe Ruth
balls.
ones are more expensive.
I would not advise the Babe Rube ball.
Hey, we also want to give a big shout out. We talked about him to open the show, but the Draft app is a must-add app. I mean, look, you're all fantasy football fans. You're listening because you enjoy the game. You enjoy Sundays.
Did you catch me last night?
Oh, that's great. Pull
I'll
it
check
up and
while you
check.
talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, we play this every single week. We enjoy it. You get to draft in a snake draft. You get to do it for
draft, man.
Yeah, you actually get to draft, and you do it for money. You can win money, and you could do it for $1, for $5, for $10. There's all sorts of fun leagues, and it puts something on the line every single game.
I beat you.
I didn't get back.
Brandon Cooks killed you.
Yeah.
Drew Brees got you close, but I won. I'm the winner. I'm the best.
All right. Well, then why don't you tell them about draft, Andy?
Yeah, well, I won this past week. You draft 5 players every single week. You can do it in a big league. You can do it with your friends. It's a really fun thing. Once you set a league up, you can just redo that league every single week, and that's what we've been doing this week. I took the cake.
Yeah.
Mike had like half my points. So
It was not a good week for
but
the
go to,
Hitman.
hey, if you want to grab it, go to playdraft.com/ballers or go to the iOS or App Store.
And make sure put in the promo code BALLERS because then it'll put you in our 2 leagues so you can play with us.
So, all right, let's continue the waiver wire discussions here. Jordan Howard, the big ad. How much of your FAAB budget would you spend if you're in a $100 league on Jordan Howard?
Assuming that you
Got to know your league.
Yeah, that is so important, Mike. We didn't bring that up, I don't think, on our previous waiver shows. But when we give a number, completely abandon that number based on your league. I mean, if we say, hey, this guy's worth $10 or 10% of your FAAB, if you're in a league where you know, look, this guy's decimated by running backs and I'm going up against him and he's got to have him and he's going to bid $40 and you want to keep him away, go 45. I mean, those things matter. And so don't just take what we say, take what we say as far as the value as like a starting point for you, but be completely willing to abandon that. You know your league's better than we do. I think people are going to be aggressive after Jordan Howard. There's still people really hurting for running backs this week. I'm guessing that you're going to need to pay $20, $25.
I was going to say 25 to 35 in that range.
Yeah, I mean, it's not often that you get the opportunity for a guy that could end up, he has what you want. Like, as opposed to Matt Asiata taking over a role where he's been in the league a while and you kind of know the upside. We don't really know it with Jordan Howard yet, so that's exciting.
Yes.
That kind of gets – that's fun. All right, let's talk about Dwayne Washington. Dwayne Washington – he was much more efficient on the ground. Jim Caldwell came out and said, Theo Riddick, the reason he struggled this week was because we didn't block for him. Apparently they were blocking for Dwayne Washington a little bit better than they were Theo Riddick because he had an okay game.
That's why Theo Riddick couldn't run it. It's because they weren't blocking for him.
Yeah,
that's
For his whole career.
That's exactly why.
Yeah, he has not been a proficient between the tackles guy because that's not
what he does.
That's not what he does. It's like Andre Ellington when he tried to do that for the Cardinals. It's not what you do. Now, Washington had the same amount of carries, but I think gained something like 29 more yards than Riddick did. So Washington's owned in 20% of leagues. I still think he's a name that people don't know.
Yes.
Because he's not the more prolific rookie names that we've heard out there, the Kenyon Drakes of the world, the Jordan Howards. But, Mike tried to throw him into a trade yesterday, and I thought I heard the name DeAndre Washington when he said it. So I didn't even hear the name right. But Dwayne Washington has an opportunity here because Amir Abdullah's gone, and they're not going to let Riddick be inefficient between the tackles because you can line him up. You don't have to play him there.
Yeah, and so the thing about Washington, I drafted late in the actual NFL draft, 7th round, so that's kind of why people don't know about him. And generally, I don't really concern myself with a 7th round running back, but now you have a 7th round running back who is in a prime position to be the guy who's actually running the ball, be the goal line carrier. He's 6'2", 220 pounds, and can run a 4.44. So I mean, you're talking about a guy who is extremely athletic. He showed in college he can catch the ball as well. So it's not like he's just the 2-down grinder. He can be involved the way the Lions need him to be. And
he'll go, I think in some leagues he'll go unclaimed this week. I mean, he didn't do anything that made people go, oh, I've got to go out and get him. If he was probably picked up last week in competitive leagues and won't be picked up this week in other leagues. So I think you can get him affordable. You can drop $1 or $5 and probably get him if he's still on your waivers, in my opinion.
Let me put you on the spot, Jeff.
Sure.
We talk about signing guys off of waivers, but the other side of that equation is dropping guys from your team.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
And so let me put you on the spot here with with Dwayne Washington.
Ooh, okay.
Would you drop Matt Asiata to sign Dwayne Washington this week?
For a play this week, I would, absolutely. And to put that, as you continue asking people, he's going up against Chicago. Chicago's defense.
Dwayne Washington is.
Yes, Dwayne Washington is going up against Chicago this week, so on a weekly spot start, I do like that.
Okay.
And the New York Giants' run D has been really good this year. That's who Asiata's going up against.
Okay. What about, would you drop Kenyon Drake to sign Dwayne Washington?
No way in the world, because I am madly in love with Kenyon Drake,
and
so I'm very biased. But in all fairness, I would not, because what we saw from Kenyon Drake was that he was the starter. He had more snaps, and yes, he did not get that touchdown, but he played well.
He's got Cincinnati on Thursday night this week.
If you need a weekly start, if you've got to start a guy this week and you don't have anyone else to drop, then yes, I would drop Dwayne Washington. I would drop Kenyon Drake. I would rather start Dwayne Washington for this week.
All right, let's talk about the Paul Perkins Orleans Darkwa situation. Paul Perkins says he's ready to step up. Bob McAdoo said he's committing to a committee.
Yeah.
Committing to a committee there, which is, the fantasy bad news.
That's the death squad.
So, personally, I've seen Orleans Darkwa. I think he's probably the guy to own for the next few weeks, but the long play here is Paul Perkins to me. Because if Rashad Jennings can't get back or gets re-injured or does what Rashad Jennings does, which is not play a full season, I think I'd rather have my chips in the side of the guy that, was drafted to be, a running back by this coaching staff. I think Dark was okay. This was kind of a little bit of a McKinnon Asiata situation to me.
I agree. And so for me personally, this is a situation I really like because I feel like it's getting a lot of publicity. People are going to pay up for some of these guys, and I'm going to avoid all of them. I agree with you that Paul Perkins would be the one to own for the long run because this week's matchup isn't good, and I don't think Orleans Darkwa is talented enough to really take over. And hopefully, there's that unknown sexiness of oh man, maybe the rookie coming in.
The alliteration.
Yeah.
Paul Perkins.
Bobby Rainey's still there as well, getting snaps.
Yeah,
here and
so
there.
for
So
me,
put him at the very bottom of your waiver claims for no money.
Yeah, and if other people bid on them and win them, I'm happy. It takes their FAAB away, and I think they're going to have a mess on their hands.
Fair enough. Let's talk about Darren Sproles is worth mentioning as well. He's probably owned in your leagues. I guess he's 50-50 right now. I still think he's one of the hardest guys in the league to
never
start
know when to
because
start
you just
him.
don't know when you're going to get that big game from Darren Sproles. And look, Wendell Smallwood.
He had a pretty good game.
He was the starter. I think
17 for 79 and a touchdown. That's a stat line that is – he's owned in 1% of leagues.
Well, because he hasn't really been involved. But this game, they came out, and as Mike mentioned, Ryan Matthews got you negative points this week. I think that should Ryan Matthews be injured, what we saw was every running back is going to be involved, but Wendell Smallwood will be the guy to have, not Kenyon Barner. And so Wendell Smallwood, if you're the Ryan Matthews owner, I'd be willing to pick him up if you've got a burnable spot on your bench. I think that Ryan Matthews is not going to be long-term injured on this current ankle. And so, next week.
He's getting a new ankle.
Yeah.
They're flying it in.
Well, I'm saying, I don't doubt that he's injured long-term, but it'll be a new injury because he loves injuries. He's always at the injury shop buying new ones. But this one, I don't think.
Arian there? Is Arian Foster at the
Arian,
shop?
he's got the membership. He's got the Costco card.
Yeah, he's actually started working there. They gave him a job, so he's selling things to Ryan Matthews.
You're here so much. Why don't you work?
Hakeem Nicks works in the back.
Yeah, they don't bring him out front.
He ships stuff out. I like this, the injury shop. This is good. Let's move on to tight ends, or as I call them, the nameless bunch. Because, look, I don't know who to start. I don't. I have no – look, if you put me in this position this week, listen to these names. Cameron Brate, Dennis Pitta, Zach Miller, Jason Witten, Gary Barnidge. Tell me who to start, guys, because I don't have a five-sided coin to flip.
I was hoping you'd throw Kyle Rudolph into there.
Sure, why not?
Then I would start Kyle Rudolph.
You would, huh?
I would. Kyle Rudolph, I heard a stat this morning that behind Greg Olsen and Jordan Reed, Kyle Rudolph has the most targets for the tight end position. So, we've seen Sam Bradford. We saw him last year in Philadelphia going to Ertz big time at the end of the year. And he's already going to Kyle Rudolph. 7 for 70 and a touchdown against the Panthers.
And the running game of the Vikings has not been able to get going. We were talking off air, and I asked the guys what team they thought had the lowest yards per carry in the NFL. And, of course, the name that comes up is Jacksonville because you've had Chris Ivory who stunk and TJ Yeldon who stunk there. But it's actually been the Minnesota Vikings at 2.1 yards per carry at the running back position. That means you're going to have to throw the ball eventually. And I agree with you. Kyle Rudolph is a talented tight end as well. Let's not forget that. 2 years ago, he was one of those guys where you wanted to draft him because you saw the big upside. The limitation of Kyle Rudolph has always been the offense. They just don't pass enough. But if the running game can't get going with Sam Bradford there, who's, better at really gunslinging than Teddy Bridgewater was, I agree.
I still think Kyle Rudolph, look, I understand he scored twice, but I think that's the illusion here. I mean, Kyle Rudolph, out of the top 4 guys that you mentioned in that target range, he has by far the least amount of total yards. You've got Olsen and Pitta and Reed that are far ahead of him in total yardage, and even those targets that are there, he's not catching as many of them. I think when the touchdown isn't there for Rudolph, he's going to burn you and burn you bad. I'd rather roll Pitta out there than I would.
If you had said Pitta in that list, I missed it because you know that I like the 2-hip.
I did say Pitta.
Hippa.
Oh, he's got 2 hips again,
Dennis
huh?
Pitta, the 2-hippa. Yeah,
the 2-hippa.
My favorite tight end right now to own that is kind of that has been a waiver guy, probably owned now, is Eric Ebron, because he is really involved in that passing game. He does not need the touchdown to have a serviceable game. This last week, 8 targets, 5 catches for 69 yards. He didn't get a touchdown, but he didn't destroy your team the way that a Dwayne Allen needs that touchdown. Most tight ends, you have to get that touchdown to be in the top 12. I don't think you have to with Eric Ebron, but he is also a great red zone weapon. You've seen him grab touchdowns this year, and he's going to continue to put points on the clock.
Let's talk about Cameron Brate, because Brate, this is his first week as the full-time tight end for the Buccaneers with ASJ leaving. He's still up there in Greg Olsen leads the league along with Rudolph with 26 targets at the tight end position. Cameron Brate is at 17 through 3 weeks, and 2 of those weeks he was sharing time. And so I think he's worth discussing along with Zach Miller, because both of those guys has 17, 18 carries. Miller seemed to find a rapport with Hoyer, and if Hoyer ends up staying in there, who do you like more, Miller or Brate?
Definitely Brate for me. Brate has not had that complete, single tight end role where he's been sharing with Austin Seferian Jenkins. So there is room to grow for Brate, whereas I think with Miller, I think this last week we kind of saw his absolute upside. And granted, it was fantastic this last week, but I don't think that Miller's going to have. I mean, when Jay Cutler comes back, does that change things drastically for Zach Miller?
I think Zach Miller is going to be very involved if Alshon Jeffrey is limited.
Yes, and that's what we saw last year.
And he's he's also the safety valve and the goal line play when you don't have a healthy Jeffrey, and Kevin White is still finding his footing in this league. And so I'm kind of interested in Zach Miller moving forward, because you saw him at the end of last year be a very prolific tight end. So I think he still has that kind of an upside in the offense. I think this is why it's a 5-sided coin between those guys, or whatever you want to call it. Mike calls it the
Barfies.
The Barfies. I mean, it makes me, I guess, really wish I had a must-start Greg Olsen, because I'd love to not think about this.
Interesting.
All right. Let's talk about the quarterback position. I know everybody in the world is starting Trevor Siemian the rest of the year.
Of course.
43 points.
Nothing but
He's
the
the number
best.
1 quarterback. Of course you do.
Let me ask
right?
you this. Let me put you in a funny position. Carson Wentz or Trevor Siemian the rest of the season?
Oh, Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I'll go Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I do too. But why? Why do we do that? Is it because of the pedigree?
No, I don't think it's because of the pedigree. I don't believe that the Broncos are going to continue being a passing offense the way that we saw. They are a defense-led team, and that is a running game, which they have. I just expect
Strong argument.
Yeah.
All right. We also have, Mike. You might see Winston's. Okay, go ahead.
I wanted to clarify. Yesterday I was talking about of how I think I'm just going to ride or die now with Jameis Winston. I had not remembered at that time that he's playing against Denver this week, which I'm not.
Die.
I don't think I'm not gonna go up against that. So I will. Which if you're following my team, which I know all of you are,
Always.
it's gonna be. I'm gonna stream Joe Flacco again. If I don't find a different option, but I'm not going Jameis yet. But pretty soon it's gonna be throw Jameis in the quarterback position and just take what he gives me.
Yeah, all ride or dies go out the window with the Broncos defense.
All right, defenses that are worth picking up this week.
The Vikings.
Oh man, the Vikings to me are one of my top pickups. Let's say you are a good team, right? You've got
Thank you.
yeah, that'd be funny. Let's say that you are a team right now that has depth. You don't have guys you're going to be dropping for Jordan Howard because you have a better option. on your bench because you're stacked. You're looking good. For me, I would then be willing to spend up for the Minnesota Vikings. I believe this defense is legit, is for real.
Is 8 sacks good?
8 sacks is pretty good. I don't think that they're going to continue on their ridiculous touchdown pace.
They have the Giants
their
and the
schedules,
Texans at home the next 2 weeks
and even
before the bye week.
Even beyond that, I mean, they don't have a bad matchup until Arizona, and
who knows? That might be a good matchup.
The Vikings are available in over half of leagues.
Well, the wonderful thing about that was that this last week they went up against Carolina, who was seen as this really high-power offense. So many teams that had the Vikings, they dropped them because of that matchup.
Pop quiz. What defense has given up the least amount of points in the entire league?
Oh,
real life points?
I'm going to go Philadelphia
No, for 10
Eagles.
points.
Well, fantasy points. We're a fantasy football show, my
Yes,
friend.
real life points
Okay.
against. We don't. The Eagles.
Yeah.
27 points through 3 weeks. 2 is the Seahawks. 3 is the Vikings. 4 are the Ravens, and the Patriots are number 5. Who's given up the most points in the league?
Is that the Cardinals?
No.
Oh, it's like, please don't
No,
do that
no,
to me.
no,
Don't do that to me.
Cardinals actually are more towards the top half. The Buccaneers. The Buccaneers have given up 101 points. The Saints, then the Colts, and the Redskins. So this is the time now that after 3 weeks,
Yep.
you can look at numbers like that and say,
Yeah.
oh, I play my Trevor Siemians against the Buccaneers this week, maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
He's
this
a
week,
stream-worthy guy.
Absolutely.
And he may be my stream of the week. Hint, hint.
Yeah, I like it.
So
After we mock Trevor Siemian.
right.
We didn't mock
No,
him.
we just said that we'd take the, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on. Let's talk about those quarterbacks we think are worth starting this week.
Full stream ahead.
I got an email this morning, Mike, and they said, what was that song that was played at the beginning of the show yesterday? I've been looking everywhere. I cannot find it.
Not available on iTunes.
No. I did send it to him, though.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's my material.
Well, yeah.
What's yours is mine.
That's true. That's true.
It is available free publicly, so
Yeah,
that's fine.
Mike made that song, but people were big fans. Big
Oh,
fans.
God, I appreciate
of the
it.
Kristen Michaels.
That was a
so
lot
well
of fun.
done. Yeah, that was really cool. How long? I'm just curious. How long did that take you? Because I know you're a well-oiled musical machine, but I mean,
I think that took me maybe 25 to 30 minutes.
wow, that's cool.
I could have done it in 15.
6.5 hours. That has been where I would have been at.
I could have played around for 6.5 hours and I would have had nothing because I can't do any of that.
Look, they're not quite flames for Trevor Siemian because he hasn't been doing this for multiple weeks, but I am going to make my stream of the week Trevor Siemian at home against the Buccaneers, the aforementioned Buccaneers who have given up 101 points on the season.
In 3 weeks?
Yeah, that's a lot of
And
points.
Hey, you know who they – just a reminder out there, Foot Clan. The Buccaneers played the Rams last week.
Yeah.
They played the Rams, and they gave up almost 40 points to the Rams.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you. They've given up against the quarterback in our league format 31, 35, and 24, including that 24 being to Case Keenum. So, look, he's the guy for me to start this week if you need it. And the best part is your opponent won't take you seriously. It'll be perfect. They'll think you're just chasing the points from last week. But you're not. You're taking the matchup with Trevor Siemian. So that's my stream of the week, Trevor Siemian. I also think Dak Prescott's worth considering against the 49ers.
Yeah. For me, my start of the week
What about your stream of the week, though?
Or yes, my stream of the week, the guy available in a lot of leagues where you can pick him up of waivers, get 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco's a real up and down quarterback when it comes to fantasy. He has the ability to have nice big weeks, and on your average week, he's not really a fantasy starter. And so you've got to know the matchup, and you've got to know whether he's home or away, because Joe Flacco's one of those quarterbacks with those splits where you're not going to stream him. I'm not going to stream him if he's on the road. But he's home this week, and he's against the Oakland Raiders. Now, while last week the Oakland Raiders didn't give up a lot, I don't think it was really at the fault of the Oakland Raiders or at the, it wasn't their doing. This week, I expect Joe Flacco with Steve Smith being, completely healthy now. Dennis Pitta with 2 hips. Mike Wallace, he has the weapons there. He's at home. The Raiders, he's available in most leagues. He didn't have a great week this last week, which means even if he's owned, he's probably going to be dropped by a lot of people. He's the guy that I would stream.
And I'm going to throw out the Brockness monster. He's playing against Tennessee at home. Tennessee, they surprisingly have not been giving up a bunch of fantasy points to the quarterback position, but I like the Texans to bounce back a lot. Tennessee they're a disgrace to me for fantasy purposes right now. And here's what Brock has going for him. He's not playing on the road against Billy B, right? He's back at home where Will Fuller can thrive. DeAndre Hopkins.
Will Fuller the 5th.
Thank you.
They changed that in ESPN this morning.
Did they?
They added the
Will
the
Fuller
V.
V.
Yeah.
Will Fuller the 5th and Hopkins. Look, the weapons are there for Brock. I think this is a nice get-right bounce-back game at home against a what I consider to be a bad defense. So I think that he is worth throwing out there if you're scrounging the waiver wire. I agree with Jason. I like Flacco a little bit better this week, but I think that Brock will be just fine.
I also think that the Texans D belongs in that streaming option.
Sure, yeah.
If they're not owned at home, Tennessee seems good. Seems like a get-right game for them as well. So that is it for today's show. Don't forget, tomorrow we have a Keep Trade Cut value show, as well as our Foot Clan mailbag and much more, injury updates, things like that. You guys have any parting words for the listenership?
Hey, if you're winners out there, and we know you are, you got to go to fantasyjocks.com. Get yourself one of them big old championship belts. Use the promo code footballers, and you'll save a little bit of quiche.
Make sure you stay tuned for the show after the show. We're going to open up a football hall and show you what's inside.
Only on YouTube.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.